Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Dragan Dimovski. And as always, we have the lovely co-host Amanda Calabria.
Hi.
Back again, we have Stu Benson from Benson Auctions. Welcome back, Stu.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Good.
So for listeners out there, a little bit about yourself.
Independent auctioneer operating in Sydney's northwest, 15 years proudly independent. Nobody auctions more property, I guess, north of the Harbour Bridge than I do on any given week.
Amazing.
Gives my vendors and agents a lot of experience on their side.
Okay. Nice. So we obviously did another podcast previously.
We did.
So for anyone else that wants to catch up, I guess this is a part 2 of that podcast.
Yeah, we talked about auctions in general before, but today I want the meat. I want the juicy stuff.
The content.
I want to lift the
story.
Lift the veil behind the curtain today.
Yeah.
All right.
Shady, slimy things that
Like
we have to deal with.
dark. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's not Big Brother.
Amanda, you can start.
Okay, I'll start. No, as buyer's agents, obviously we advocate for the buyer and, you know, we're bargain hunters. We do investment properties. We don't buy a lot at auction for our clients.
Sure.
But a lot of clients, if they're, looking for an owner-occupier or they've had auction experience before, there's a lot of fear, misinformation and so on around some of the dodgier things that agents might do to increase the heat, increase the pressure at auctions. So I wanted to talk about some of those things today.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned when you told us who you are that you're an independent auctioneer. So you're not associated exclusively with a particular agent or franchise or group of agents. I want to talk about those that are, the auctioneers that are. So, if you sign up with a listing agent and you want to sell your property at auction, they have their own auctioneer.
Yes. Yep.
That will do that. Why do people use you when their selling agent offers them someone?
Well, look, I think that independence and the fact that every result matters to me because of my name and my brand and my results get me my diary filled. I think that independence gives the vendor confidence that they have an advocate that is there working for them. Don't get me wrong, I'm working for the agency. I want that agency to have a remarkable result. I want to set the neighbourhood on fire in terms of having everybody thinking and talking about that agent and that result. And luckily I'm associated with that because I'm the all singing, all dancing crescendo of their campaign and their hard work. But it is important that I do a very good job and that I'm also a vendor advocate working for that result. I have always had a little bit of a problem with the in-house auctioneer in that their work is all but guaranteed. Whether they sell 10 out of 10 on a Saturday or pass in 10 out of 10 on a Saturday, or 8 of those 10 results was subpar, and I feel like maybe the owner was maybe given some advice to just sell the property and move on. And regardless, that auctioneer is going to open up their diary on Monday morning and have another 10 auction bookings from that agency because they're assured it, because they're ingrained in that agency's culture. Whereas mine, I'll be completely honest with you, there is no certainty. I have to do a good job. I have to do, and that's not to say that there are auctioneers out there who work for corporates don't do good jobs. They do great jobs. But I feel it's a little bit different when you are guaranteed the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose as a buyer, and correct me if I'm wrong, whenever I've sold, I've obviously always asked for you to be my auctioneer. I never use the in-house auctioneer if it's offered. And for me, the reason is that I don't know what conversations the agent is having with his auctioneer, what instructions he's giving, what he's repeated about me and my bottom line. Or, for me, my skepticism comes from, well, their auctioneer is going to help them get a sale so that they get their commission. Whereas your fee is a flat fee, whether it sells or not, whether it sells for more or sells for less, your fee is a flat fee.
Yep.
So for me, when I ring you to book you and engage your services, I'm dealing with you directly. I'll use the phrase managing the narrative or managing.
Sure. No, I get what you mean. Yep.
Managing the auctioneer, whatever. But I'm hiring you and I'm dealing with you, not to lock in the sale for the agent, but to get objective advice from an independent auctioneer. So I suppose my question to you is, in the event that somebody does use the in-house auctioneer, what sort of conversations happen between the agent and the auctioneer that the vendor might not know about or be happy with that could be going on there?
Well, look, I would imagine that obviously on the day, the agent wants the property sold for the highest and best price. I have to believe that no matter what agent is representing what property type. The phone is only going to ring on Monday morning if the result is a good one. So the agent wants the best for the vendor. However, the vendor might be high on the expectation. The vendor might have been a little bit overpromised, and now we're about to want to deliver to a degree. The auctioneer can be used in a way in which they can help underpin the narrative that we need to lower that reserve, we need to change this strategy. If the auctioneer is in-house, they've got to remember that at the end of the day, they are getting paid and they are getting booked by the agent.
Yep.
So they've got to, I guess, sing from the same hymn book, and they need to make sure that they are on song and they are, a part of the play. So the objective still remains the same. They want to get the property sold. They want to get the best price. And I honestly have to believe that there is an agent in Sydney who does not want to get the vendor the best price. But you've got somebody who has a slight element of conflict. A slight element of conflict. It just is.
Yeah.
You are not a truly independent arbiter of what is going to happen on auction day, because you have been given that auction and will be given plenty more auctions by virtue of the fact that you are that in-house trusted.
Yeah, they don't want to burn their agent. Because
you got to be careful. You got to play the game. Whereas, don't get me wrong, so do I. I mean, I've got agents who give me 20 auctions every single month. I've got to look after those agents. I've got to send from the same hymn book as that agent. But I am also hyper exposed with my own brand and my own name and my own reputation in the neighborhood. So I just genuinely believe it just runs a slightly different path.
I want to also talk about some other things that go on. And I don't know if this is exclusively when agents and auctioneers are known to each other, or if it's an industry thing, or if it's something that vendors do. But I want to talk about dummy bidding, because a lot of people that we do speak to fear the dummy bidder, or they fear the auction pressure, or any sort of deception that goes on that makes them pay more than they should.
Sure. And how much of that actually goes, what's a percentage on auctions out there that actually have dummy bids?
Or how many get caught?
How many?
I honestly, and I say this honestly, hand on heart, it doesn't happen with the agents that I represent.
Okay.
It just doesn't happen. I don't know if it's area specific. I don't know if it's demographic specific.
Yep.
Or is it just
agent specific?
Agent specific. Or is it just agent or agency specific, or cultural? When I say cultural, I mean cultural within that office.
Yeah.
Or within that brand. Is it cultural? But what I would say is, I also represent a huge proportion of my agents are independent agents. They're not franchised. I've got some great franchise. I represent some of the best franchised agents in the country up here in the northwest of Sydney. But a lot of mine are independent. And I think maybe that independence and having their name above the door like I do and having their brand exposed, maybe that thins that out, or maybe that's why it's not a thing, because there's too much.
Who's actually responsible, though, for vetting buyers to ensure they're legit? Is that on the agent or is that on you?
It's on the agent. Look, the auctioneer should be asking questions and should be checking records and making sure that the appropriate people are there. If a telephone bidder is there, I need to make sure that I've got the appropriate authorities and that I've seen and cited the fact that that telephone bidder is who is acknowledged on the piece of paper, and that piece of paper is then backed up by the relevant documentation and the points of identification in the state of New South Wales that are prescribed to us under the Act. So there are definitely checks. I mean, there should be, and this is why Fair Trading do audits, and they want to check. They want to check your register. Who registered? Who were these people? What identification did you get off them? Did they register via one of these online platforms like a Realtor or those sorts? And do we collate and keep them for as long as we should? There are plenty of rules and regulations to a standard out. Whilst it's in the media right now and it's on the news right now because of certain practices that are being exposed through the northwest of Sydney at the moment, it's topical. I get it. It is the minority of the minority of the minority that do this. Yeah. Dummy bidding isn't a practice that, to my knowledge, and to anybody that I speak to, in auctioneering circles, in agent circles, what is happening right now within the broader industry and is hitting the media has made a lot of us start to talk to each other about things. And did that happen at your auction? Does that happen at your auction? From what I can tell, it's not a thing. It's an isolated thing, and it's something that is alleged to have been cultural and ingrained. But from what I'm hearing, and I know that from the offices that I deal with, it's not a thing. So a headline is going to spook a potential purchaser thinking, I'm going to turn up to an auction and there's going to be 5 dummy bidders. I get it. Headlines spook. Media spooks. Media says that the sky is falling. The sky is falling. Media says the clearance rate's high. People think the market's hot. People say that, there are only 2 bidders turning up to auctions and the clearance rate's 30%. People feel like they're in a buyer's market. So these sorts of clickbait and headline things can drive narratives. But the reality is that out on the floor and out on the grounds and what I'm seeing, it's not cultural. It's not ingrained. It's not a broader problem within the industry whatsoever.
Sure.
So those that do it, what are they trying to achieve? Is it purely to drive the price up? Is it to create hype? Is it to control the auction? And again, I don't want to name names, but I have attended auctions where there has been a dummy bidder. And one of the trends that I noticed across attending multiple of these auctions is that the dummy bidder seems to be the only bidder allowed to control the auction. I'll give you an example. Say they're bidding increments of 50 or increments of 20.
Yes.
Okay. They hold all the bidders to whatever that increment is that they want. So 20, we're not accepting, anything less than another 20.
Okay.
What I've found is that the dummy bidder, if they say, can I do 10, because the auction has
all of a sudden it's okay.
Suddenly it's always the same bidder that's allowed to change the auction. So there are ways to spot a dummy bidder, but why risk the legalities around using a dummy bidder when genuine bidders are already asking to decrease the increment anyway?
Look, down the barrel of the camera, it's insane. To have a dummy bidder at an auction, it's insane. It makes absolutely no sense. At the end of the day, if you've overquoted what this listing is worth to win the business and to the vendor when you've secured the work, 3 other agents are saying to Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, your house is worth $1 million. And the showboaty agent, the flashy agent, or whomever agent goes in and says, no, it's worth 1.2, list with me. Then lo and behold, they take the property to market and guess what? It's worth about $950 to $1 million. And they've got this huge gap. So on auction day, they're going to have a couple of buyers there. They're not going to have the depth of buyer pool to actually get this thing over $1 million. Yep. So then they start scrambling. Then they bring dummy bidders. That's the principal theory as to why you would have them there. It's to help you bridge a gap that the market will not, by logic, based on recent and comparable sales, or I guess the depth of pocket, the spend level of those buyers, they can't get there. So you artificially inflate the gap.
I just find it's
insane.
It's too much.
It's
just
very
too much
risky.
trouble for what it's worth.
Because there's no return on it.
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. It still goes to the highest.
Yeah, but just take it to the market and let the market see what it's worth, and then you go cap in hand to the owner and say, you know what, I know we were hoping for 1.2. But we've only got 2 registered buyers here physically, and those buyers are stopped at $990,000. What would you like to do?
Yeah.
Cap in hand, humble pie. I was wrong. This is the market. Would you like to accept it?
Yeah.
You got to make your bed, and you got to lie in your bed. And if you went and told them it was worth 1.2 and every other agent told them it was $1 million, that's not the market's fault. That's a you thing. Yeah. That's an agency thing. That's a cultural thing. And I had a conversation with a really good agent on the way here into this podcast this morning. He said, Stu, I'm missing out on listings at the moment. He said, because I'm not lying to these vendors.
Yeah.
But it's, what we get it on the buyer's agency side of things. You get these young guns that have very little experience promising the world.
Yeah.
And then
they can't deliver.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we get it. We get it from the clients coming back to us and go, we were promised this and the price was lower and all that. Oh, yeah, yada, yada, yada.
Another shady thing they're doing, and you can tell us the legalities of this as the auctioneer because, again, I only know what you tell me, to be honest. The extent of my knowledge is whatever you tell me.
Yep. Sorry about that.
Well, let's hope I retell it correctly because, again, you told me this when I received a text after an auction that I attended. That auction passed in.
Yep.
Now, the way that auction went down was, bidding. There was, I believe, a dummy bidder present.
Allegedly, yes.
This bidder...
You'd been to enough. I know you knew.
This bidder bid at 150K over. We were already at small increments, and then they went 150, which to me is a big jump when the auction's already dead.
Huge.
Okay?
Yep.
150K. We're still not at reserve, so it's safe to dummy bid. Any dummy bidder that bids after the reserve is met is silly. So
crazy. Yeah.
Right. So we're at that price. Then they threw a vendor's bid on top of that. So they used the dummy bidder to throw on the 150. Then they
which softens the blow of the vendor bid.
Right, and then they passed it in. Okay. They tried to bully everyone into matching the vendor bid, which was already, they go, well, the next bidder, he would have paid that 150 more. I don't believe he accepted, but they were using...
Sell it to him.
But they were his bid because they needed someone just below the vendor, right?
Yeah.
Again, my observation, I don't know.
Sure.
Right, but to go 150 up and then place the vendor bid, they needed a bid just below the vendor bid.
Got it.
My theory. Get a text on the Monday, this property's passed in at blah, blah, blah price. Okay? I sent you that text because I had told you about my theory of this dummy bidder. We had a bit of a laugh and I said, check out this text. It's passed in at this price. You already knew it passed in on a vendor bid because I told you. Now, this piece of marketing, because it went out to everyone, didn't state that it passed in on a vendor bid.
Yep.
What did you say to me at that point?
Well, it needs to have been disclosed that it was a vendor bid. That is part of the legislation. That's part of the act. And again, that's consumer protection. That's what that is about. It's disclosure. It's a vendor bid.
So anyone that received that text or any marketing that followed, because then they switched to private treaty, it was on the market another 6 weeks. They said, well, it passed in an auction at this price. That's what you've got to beat. none of their comms ever said it was a vendor bid.
Yep.
Nor, unless you were present at that auction, did you know about that 150K jump before that?
That's also an important point, because if you weren't at the auction, you would have known the manipulation of the bidding that got it there in the first place. So, I mean, the reality is that the vendor bid was, yes, it was slightly above a live bid on the floor, and whether or not that was a legal bid or not, that's up to auditing of the bidder's record. But take those two bids out of the equation, and that property really stopped $150,000, $160,000 less than what that text message was telling the marketplace.
Correct.
Albeit without mentioning vendor bid. Quite deceptive.
Extremely deceptive. And the interesting thing is, what it passed in at was actually below our budget because it was worth more, but it was a development site, as you know. So the room was full of developers who knew better, and all of us, I hope I'm allowed to say this, but all of us had clocked the dummy bidder. So all of us had stopped bidding. Had they let that auction run, I can tell you right now, we were prepared to go higher than what they then eventually sold it for.
Yeah.
And I believe everyone in the room would have, because the room was full.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as we all clocked the dummy bidder, we all tapped out.
Yeah.
So I think for vendors who think, oh, well, you know, I'll get that dodgy guy because he'll get me the best price by pushing up, it actually does backfire as well.
Oh, without a doubt.
So they're running the risk. The vendor misses out. Buyers walk away or won't deal with that agent. You know, I stopped, unless he really had something amazing, I stopped dealing with it.
Yeah.
And nobody wins. So this is what I don't understand, the why.
Yeah, I will never understand it. It's more often than not, any example that I've ever heard of or that's ever been revealed or ever been exposed, be it through the media or through legislation or through fines, has always been an instance where it was an overpromising and then trying to dance in the gap and trying to artificially inflate to get this up to a level that wouldn't have ordinarily organically existed.
You mentioned the bidder's record before. Can you explain what that is and what your legal obligation around that is as an auctioneer?
Yeah, so look, I can only accept a bid from a registered buyer. So somebody who has identified themselves, used the appropriate points of identification in the state of New South Wales to identify themselves, giving us as an agency and also the governing body's recourse to then follow up that buyer if that buyer should disappear or default or whatever it might be. And so I need to check the bidder's record and make sure before an auction that I've got 6 registered bidders and that the form has been filled out to qualify. Yep. The agency is responsible for registering those buyers. So there is either an admin person or a staff member or an associate agent doing the registrations, and they are physically citing all forms of documentation. If they are on site, we get a certain amount. If they are representing somebody as a third party, a buyer's advocate, if they're purchasing on behalf of a superannuation fund or a company or a corporation, or they're buying on behalf of a trust, there are relevant documentations and pieces of paper that we need. And then also quick bits of research. Is that ABN viable? We'll quickly jump online and do an ABN search. Yep. Does the number make sense and does it tie into the, so there are checks. So we should know who and because of that, if there was a bidder at an auction, bidder number 4 on the telephone that was pushing and pushing and pushing, if any report is then made about that auction or about that business and about a suspicion of some sort of unscrupulous activity at the auction, then fair trading or any other governing, what could be the police, they can go and seize that bidder's record. Yep. They can then find out who that bidder was, then they can make their own inquiry and investigation as to the legitimacy of that bidder. One of the big reasons why I'm a huge advocate for registration at auctions, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, and whether it's in New South Wales or otherwise, I think when I flip the coin on the other side, I think buyer advocacy and I think consumer protection, we should have those measures in check and we should have that paper trail. Yeah.
And do you actually have to keep a record of every bid that is made as well?
Every bid. Yeah. Every bid needs to be scribed. Yeah. So it's very simply bidder paddle number 4 placed a bid of $1 million. Bidder paddle number 3 placed a bid of 1.1. And it's just, it correlates so that we can then have a paper trail of, okay, well this, let's say there is evidence of a dummy bidder and okay, so he bid 5 times because the bid alleges that he was paddle 1 and I can see on the record that he bid 9 times and then he stopped.
And you record all the auctions, don't you?
And most of the auctions are recorded. Yeah. And these days, I mean, you can't go to an auction without 27 iPhones in your face as well. So, everything we do is very, very public, and that is the whole point of a public auction as well. Social proof that this is what the home is or isn't worth.
So if I purchase at auction where there is a dummy bidder and I don't find out, say I'm part of this group that's getting investigated at the moment, or I find out by my own whatever, it comes out that there was a dummy bidder at an auction that I was the winning bidder at. If that record of bids shows it was just me and the dummy bidder neck and neck for the last 100K.
Mm-hmm.
So if not for that dummy bidder, I would have purchased 100K less. And I then find out about it.
Mm-hmm.
How am I protected? What can I do? Or is that auction valid? Does it invalidate the auction?
Yeah, that's a good
what
question,
happened?
That is a great question. Look, I mean, obviously this isn't
Because
legal.
I'd be very mad.
Yeah, look, obviously this isn't legal advice. What I would say is that from my understanding is that's something different entirely. That is, I guess, deception and fraud.
Yeah.
That would, I believe, not only would that be something that the relevant governing bodies within real estate and the fair trading, and that is almost ACCC police.
That's massive.
That is different entirely.
Yeah.
Because what you would have is a situation where if it was only you and if it was done at a
So we're talking criminal here. I can't just go and sue old mate real estate agent for the difference, or
I think there'll be something around where maybe, I mean, just common knowledge would come into play where the people involved would have to
class action or something.
Well, not only class action, but they would also have some monetary payback, right?
You would have to.
Do.
Yeah. There would have to be.
Yeah.
Cause,
to the buyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't rest until if I found out I was the winning bidder against a fake. I'd go after that money.
100%.
Yeah, because you could have overspent $120,000 on a property,
That's
and
right.
and let's be clear. You may not have bought that property for $120,000 less. That's not what. That's not. You can't allege that. You can't allege that because the vendor might have turned around and said, "Well, I'm not selling the property. You would never have bought the property. You moved on happily."
Yeah.
So you got the asset, but you really then would go back to the paper trail behind the scenes of what listings substantiated the valuation on the agency agreement to have won that business. What was the reasonable expectation of that vendor going into that auction based on the recency of sales?
Yeah.
You might have paid $120,000 more because of the pushing, but would it be fair and reasonable to suggest that the market value you maybe paid 30 more or 40 more? So there would be a lot of establishing actual value at the time in which you purchased, so a lot of forensic going backwards. But would there be recourse for you to claim the gap? I think that is black and white, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I certainly would be looking at wanting to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Stu, would you, now a little bit of promotion on our side.
Yeah, go for it.
Have you seen, what's the question I'm trying to ask? So I guess buyers who are maybe first timers going into auctions using buyer's agents or buyer's advocates, and where do you see the benefit than just going alone at it?
Oh, look, I love when I see a buyer's advocate turning up to my auctions because I know that the research has been done. I know that there's a strategy, and I know that they are there to play. They're not going to waste their time on a Saturday or Sunday.
Play.
Well, yeah. Oh, look, there's an element. There's an element of play and dance and it all, and I know you do.
I love throwing stupid numbers.
Yeah,
to do the math.
Yeah. What are we on the block? You're going to throw me a weird little number.
That's where you cut your teeth, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, I've been on the block. Look, I think. I'm huge on not only buyer advocacy, but research and knowing your stuff. And I do know that when somebody who does this for a living turns up at one of my auctions, I'm a chance of selling because I've got a qualified buyer in the crowd. I've got somebody who's done their numbers, done their research and knows what they're doing. You could be anywhere on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, but you've attended one of my auctions and you've registered to bid. You're there to buy. Or at the very least, you're there to, really give it a shot. Okay.
Yeah.
So I like that. And again, it just goes back to my whole ethos on any advice that I would give any buyer. You want to turn up research. You want to turn up having known your stuff. You want to turn up seasoned and had been to a few before and maybe bid at a couple before. But the advantage that you also bring is that granular research that you're doing, and you're looking at your yields and you're looking at your growth and you're looking at your trajectories and your forecasts, and it does give you an advantage. And that maybe things that buyers don't about this suburb, or maybe things about this street or this pocket that the other buyers don't. And so therefore your bigger bid at the end of the auction, maybe the auction stopping offer that blows everybody out of the water and just make sure that the gavel falls in your favor, is calculated, measured, but also it makes sense to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have bid it. Yeah. So, I'm a huge fan of anybody engaging advocacy because, more often than not, you guys do buy at my auctions. Or if you don't, I love that you come to the auctions because you're responsible for me getting to my finish line. But you wouldn't have done that if it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it's just the knowledge that an advocate brings to an auction
Yeah.
is worth whatever your fee is. I don't know what you charge, but I tell everybody whatever they charge, it's worth it.
Yeah, and also taking emotion out of it. That's a big one.
100%.
Yeah.
You are.
You're immune to that.
Yeah, for all intents and
Unless
purposes.
we're buying our own. I'm immune when I'm
Yeah. You're not when you're buying your own. But for all intents and purposes, you've done the research which allows you to remove emotion from the equation.
Yeah.
You are bidding from somewhere that on the numbers, on the books, on paper, it makes sense. And when it stops making sense, you guys stop bidding.
Yeah.
You know, and that's and again, you don't want to overspend for anything.
No.
Although you don't want to miss out either. So it's a fine line. But and look, there are plenty of buyers advocates who will bid until the number and then they pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And the phone is, we've hit the limit or about to hit the limit. Now we're in the emotional quotient. Will you pay another 5? Will we go another 10? I got a feeling where the last 2 bidders, 5 could.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're never going to lose a deal for the emotional quotient, but you are still overridingly driven by numbers, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Perfect.
Do you get heckled much as an auctioneer?
A little bit. Look, we do get, are we on the market and, things like that a lot. An auctioneer has no obligation to call a property on the market whatsoever. Just crossing the reserve threshold gives me no impetus or I have no legal binding that says that I need to call a property on the market. A lot of people do want to know. The reality is whether I'm on the market or off the market, it shouldn't matter. If you want the property, you've got to be the highest bidder to have the hammer drop in your favour if I am above reserve and just haven't told you. Or if you want the property to pass into you for those first rights of negotiation that we do afford the highest bidder immediately after an auction, you've got to be the highest bidder. So either way, whether I'm on reserve, on the market, under reserve, you need to be the highest bidder.
So that's your common heckle, are we on the market?
Are we on the market? Yeah.
Why do people ask that? I mean, I know why I say it, but generally, why do you think people ask that or want to know that before they throw a bid on?
Look, if a property was guided at 1.5 and I'm still calling bids at 1,720,000 and I haven't said it was on the market, I think some of the buyers just genuinely think, well,
they're not selling.
Are they not selling? Are they not on the market? This thing was guided at 1.5. Are we not on the market yet? Like the suspicion is, was this underquoted?
Yeah.
Or was this lowballed? And are we not on the market yet? So I think a lot of it is just genuine, like, why isn't this bloke called the property on the market?
It's happened to me a few times.
And it's a fair question.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get so caught up in the bidding and I've got so much momentum going that I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah.
Or it hasn't been necessary.
Yeah.
And most of the time I will just say, oh, sir, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I've just forgotten to say that. Yes, we're on the market.
What sort of games are played when it comes to choosing the reserve price? How might the selling agent's advice differ to your advice as the auctioneer when setting the reserve?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There are some agents who, for whatever reason, let's say there's a property for sale and it's, the guide is 1.5. The vendors would take 1.6 and we do have feedback coming in around 1.550 to 1.6. I think that's a perfect storm and you put all those people in the same place at the same time and you let them compete for the property. Now, there are some agents who will suggest to that vendor, I think the reserve should be 1.6.
Yeah.
You want 1.6? I've got feedback around 1.6. If the auctioneer thinks it's necessary, at least it gives the auctioneer, he or she, free rein at any point in time when they feel it's appropriate to call a property on the market. Calling a property on the market can well and truly be the spark you need to ignite what I call the second auction. Yeah. A lot of the time there's an auction to get the property on the market and then there's an auction to take the property off the market.
Yeah.
And if you get that spark right and you drop that contract between the right people at the right time in the right heat of the moment, the sky's the limit.
Yep.
However, there are some agents who want to control the outcome to a degree and they will say, okay, I know we guided this thing at 1.5 and I know you want 1.6 or above and I've got buyers that are saying they've got 1.580 to spend. Why don't we set the reserve at 1.750? And if we fall short, we can bring the highest bidder inside and negotiate with that buyer. I'm like, okay, to a degree, sure, that makes sense. But your head will hit the pillow that night with the biggest question mark that will then haunt you. What would have happened if instead of doing that, we just called it on the market at 1.640 when we had 3 buyers with paddles in hand, chomping at the bit, and maybe they sail through that and we end up selling the thing for 1.8.
Yeah.
You will never know because you got in the way of competition.
Yeah.
Who is the agent to decide? Who is an auctioneer to decide?
Or even just to interfere.
Who is the vendor? Don't get in the way of the process. It's just throwing. It's throwing a speed bump into the process. You decided to go to auction. Let it run.
Yeah.
You decided to create a competitive forum that's transparent.
That's right.
Yeah.
So facilitate that. Don't hinder that. Don't get in the way of that. And that's a little bit about
they're in their process and they're in their smart, and let it just go.
Let it go. Just let it go and let it go. And it'll be what it'll be. But it'll be what it'll be because you didn't get in the way of it happening.
That's right.
You decided to go to auction. It's not auction asterisk, but let's have a high reserve that allows us to negotiate afterwards. No.
Yeah.
Then why didn't you just go private treaty, set that price, and then negotiate with anybody around there?
Yeah.
Don't get in the way of your own auction.
Yeah. And we've already given a couple of examples in this podcast where getting in the way of the auction actually puts buyers off and drops the price or how far they're willing to go. We had an auction with you where we were put in that boat. The selling agent wanted a higher reserve and you said, set the reserve, whatever you sell it at, and I'll sell it.
Yep.
And let it run, let it go. I think we did end up listening to you. Well, either way, we sailed straight past the reserve.
It was a bit of a happy medium. Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a buffer in what I suggested you put it at.
Yeah.
But it was certainly under what the agent suggested we put it at.
Yeah.
And in doing so,
it was a hot auction.
in doing so, you listened to me. You trusted me to not call it on the market prematurely. Yeah. It's an ace up my sleeve. It just gives me the flexibility to call it on when it's necessary. If I see there's a lady at the back trying to put a hand up and hold up a paddle, and the husband puts the hand down, I can read that and go, well, you know what? They need to know that it's on the market. There's some hesitancy, and if I can leverage that and get them re-engaged, the sky's the limit. And in I guess in listening to me as the independent auctioneer, it worked out pretty good.
In that case, it was great.
It worked out pretty good.
Can a vendor change the reserve during the auction, or is it set in stone once the auction begins?
Good question, and a lot of vendors do ask that. A reserve can always come down during an auction. A vendor can always meet the market of the buyers, and if we're wrong and if we're off and if we're all sky high, of course, you came there to effect a sale, an unconditional sale and an auction sale. So you can always meet the market. You can always move down. Okay. Can't go up. Once I start the auction, if the reserve's $2 million, your reserve is $2 million. You have given me a written instruction that you will sell the property for $2 million or above. Mm-hmm. Anything under that, I'm going to come and talk to you. So if it stops at $1,980,000, I'm going to come and talk to you and see what you'd like to do. Yeah. Sometimes coming inside, talking to the vendor, getting an agreement to adjust the reserve down to $1,980,000 allows me to re-enter the auction forum. Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, we're selling the property, $1,980,000. Our vendors have decided to sell. And then old mate at the back goes, well, I won't miss it for $5. I'll give you $85. And then I get 90, then I get 95, then I get 2. Sometimes you take a half a step backwards and it will propel you through the reserve. But again, a vendor is entitled to go into an auction with whatever they want to do. And that's also a tricky part of legislation and agency agreements and comparable sales as well. An agent can list a property that they've given comparable sales and proof that this property should sit around $1 million. And when they listed the property, the vendor said, look, I'd take 1.1, so that sounds fine to me. That's close enough. If we get competition, we might get rewarded. Situations can change, circumstances can change, and that vendor might just say, you know what, I'm going to give you a reserve of 1.5.
Yeah.
1.5. Maybe they feel like the agent didn't do a good enough job and they want to really hold that agency to task. Maybe they would prefer that it doesn't sell so they can get out of the agency agreement and give it to another agent. Maybe they've just flat out decided not to sell. Yep. So unfortunately, sometimes we do as auctioneers and agents, we get in some tricky situations where the guide has been $1 million and the auction stopped at $1,120,000 and we should be selling. But we've had to go up to the highest bidder, pull them aside and say, look, madam, you're at $1,120,000. This is the reserve. And they go, whoa. We didn't know about this until today. We've turned up to the auction. We've signed we've got our paperwork in order. Our house is in order. This is not what we suggested the reserve to be, but our vendor has turned around and just thrown us a curveball at the 11th hour, and that's up to them. Unfortunately, the vendor can set the reserve at whatever figure they like. But Amanda, to answer your question, it can be adjusted during the auction so long as it's down.
Yep.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm done for questions.
I just like hearing all the stories because you must see some...
give us a real badass story that really failed.
Wait, he's the badass?
No. A story that really fails.
I've had so many things. Look, I've had...
one that stands out.
Look, I've had a divorce case, which isn't nice to talk about. And I do you get divorces, you get deaths, you get debt. You get these things happening all the time. I did have a really bad divorce case where the wife turned up in her wedding dress.
What?
However, she spent the night dyeing it black. And so she turned up at the top of the street. She had a good set of lungs on her. She could have been an auctioneer. And she wailed through the entire auction. Now,
as in crying?
crying, screaming, like something like from a Tim Burton Nightmare on Before Christmas, the sort of a thing. She had the veil on, and the veil had been dyed black.
Wow.
And she just wailed through the entire.
Well, you could see who the mental case was in that.
It was, it was. I don't know, scorned or left or whatever had happened.
Jeez.
So that
There's
and
more to that story.
I'm sure
much
there
more
is.
than
I'm sure
but I had to carry
always
on.
is.
I had to carry on, and I just had to call the auction. I had to call the auction. We had bidders and we had registrants, and I had to go, and the entire auction was just non-stop wailing from.
Did it push bidders off?
I just really briefly explained that this is a divorce sale. This is a
The circumstance, the situation.
This is around the divorce. Don't let it stop you. Madam at the top of the street doesn't live in the property anymore, so this is purely an auction day theatric. If this is the house for you, keep bidding, keep going. And we sold the property, and we sold the property above reserve, but it was awkward. I've had federal police seize properties that have been sold under order, and I've turned up, and the driveway has been flanked by bikies.
Oh wow!
All staring me down.
I've been go straight back up.
I've been told, mate, don't you sell this house? Don't you sell this house? When I get out of my car, they've been at the front of the gate. They've been not allowed to be on the property, but they're up on the street frontage. And I've gotten out the front. I've popped my boot. I've got my A-frame and my gavel out. I'm just walking in to do my job. And mate, don't you sell this house? And I'm getting that look.
A lot better about all the pain I give you.
Zero walk in the park. Look, I get a lot of things, but then again, you get some wonderful stories where you get little old ladies who lived in their house for 45, 50 years, and they're finally going into a nursing home, and the kids are selling it under authority, and and we sell this property for $300,000-$400,000 above reserve, and just everybody is just mind blown. But that's the market dynamics and the dynamics of auction. There are so many wins, and I am lucky that I'm in so many photographs and so many videos of so many moments that mean so much to so many people.
That's great.
Life-changing.
That's good.
Life-changing results. And so it's a good gig. And I guess to harken back to the earlier points, there are dodgy plumbers, there are dodgy tilers, there are dodgy dentists, there are dodgy nurses. There is an element in when there's gains to be had and money on the line and advantage and prominence. There are always going to be people in every industry and every walk of life that are going to try to exploit it. I think real estate agents get a bad name. There are so many good agents. There are so many good people who don't care about the money. They're more focused on their family holidays, and they're more focused on having a beautiful house for their children to grow up in and a good school catchment so that their education allows them to not be real estate agents because they want them to be doctors and things like that. The real estate industry does get a bad rap, but it's also because we're so public facing. Yeah. We put ourselves out there.
I think it's sales in general.
It is salesy in general, without a doubt. But agents, we put ourselves on the back of buses and bus stops, and we sponsor the fates. I mean, the amount of community involvement that agencies do. I mean, we fund sporting club uniforms and PNC stalls at schools and things like that. Agents give back to their communities. They have to a degree. They're part of that ecosystem, but they get a bad rap. And to circle back to the earlier comments, there are dodgy operators in every industry, in every area. But I have to believe that the overwhelming majority of agents in New South Wales, and particularly through my Northwest corridor, are very good operators.
Yeah. And look, we deal with them day in day, and I would say 95% of them are just fantastic. Great. Yeah. And then you've got that small percentage that
you do.
But do you know what? You deal with them when you buy. When you're selling, you pick who you deal with. When you're buying, the vendor has chosen the agent that they believe will best represent them. And if they've chosen an agent that people don't want to deal with, they're only hurting themselves.
They are, yeah. And a lot of that is greed. A lot of that is, and again.
There are agents where I'll see a listing and go, it's with that agent, I'm not going to waste it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. That agency gets a stigma. That agent gets a stigma. That I'm not even going to bother. I'm not even going to bother.
And you'd be surprised how many of my clients would actually call me up and go, hey, I'm actually looking to sell my property. Can you recommend someone?
Yeah.
And I'll say, go with that person because there's no way I can get a discount from them, from my client.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They are hard at it.
I love when you're friends with real estate agents because they always get offended when you don't list with them.
Yeah.
And I go,
but you know why?
I can't list with all of you. You all want the exclusive.
Yeah.
But then they also get angry when you don't buy from them. And I'm like, that's a compliment, you peanut.
That is a huge compliment. Yeah.
Yeah. I buy from the idiots and I sell with you.
I get inboxed every week. I run a dads group in the northwest of Sydney on Facebook, which is called Dads of the Hills.
My dad's always quoting you on. You've seen this from no, Dad. I'm not a dad in the head.
It's the largest group of its kind in Australia. It's the largest support group of dads online. And we do a lot of advocacy, and we do a lot of we go and support things and charities and whatnot.
Good on you.
But because of that, it exposes me to a lot of dads who are homeowners, and they all come to me for advice. So it's good. They all inbox me. It's all private, but they always say, like, who should I buy through, or who should I sell through? And I have a list.
Yep.
I know who I would buy through every day of the week.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I know, and that in turn means that I would not sell through them.
Yes.
And so I think agents do need to remember that when they're doing these things and these tactics, that people talk and communities talk and word gets around.
And that's why when people say, who's a good agent? Well, my first question is, are you the buyer or the seller? Because my answer changes.
Changes, which is crazy, but it's a fact. Yeah.
Amazing.
And it changes the way you negotiate when you're buying from one versus another, or how much you tell them about. As you know, I'm the biggest liar when it comes to.
You do like to tell a porky? Yeah.
Because I don't like them knowing too much. Because sometimes you don't know what they do with that information, whether they jump on RP data to see what you own, or
100%.
or whether they use it against you. I don't like them knowing too much, and I don't like them knowing the consistent. Like, there'll be agents that I ring 2 years later, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, you were moving to Dubai." I'm like, "Oh, was I? Oh, cool. Okay." Because I just don't like them knowing too much. And then once they know too much, you can't buy from them.
No. Which again helps, and it sort of leads into the buyer's advocacy space that you operate in, that it doesn't matter what the circumstance is of the buyer. They're not going to need to disclose that to the agent. They can disclose it to you, and you almost become that shield.
That's right.
Going into battle, doing your research, doing your thing, and they don't need to know anything. And so I just think, a prospective purchaser who is engaging somebody like yourself, or dropping a DM to me wanting to know about the auction process, I'm all for it. I think the more armed with information about the market that a buyer is, the better the outcome's going to be for everybody. So if you're listening to the potty or you're watching us, engage a buyer's advocate, or indeed reach out to an auctioneer and have a chat. We're all happy to help.
I always try to speak to the auctioneer before an auction.
Yeah.
Because I like to hear what they have to say, and because their fees are flat fee, they'll sometimes be a little bit more loose-lipped than the selling agent.
Yeah.
Because, like if I ask an agent, how much interest have you had? Oh, it's always heaps.
Always heaps, yeah.
Bring the auctioneer, how much interest has there been? They'll tell you.
Exactly how it is. That's right. It's true. Yeah.
And I've done that with you. I think the first time I rang you, I told you I had no idea what I was doing. That was the first time
I wised up to you pretty quickly, but you did. Oh, man. You did the whole little old me thing, and it was...
I don't know what I'm doing. Tell me what to do.
Twirling your hair and kicking your toe in the dust, going, hey, can you help me, Mr. Auctioneer? I've never done this before.
Yes.
But then the problem is you can only do it once, and then
Yeah, no, then the roost is up.
So that's when I started trolling. I send him stupid numbers so we can do the maths.
That's funny.
All fun and games, but it's a great industry, and every day is different, and it is a game.
To play.
And there are many dynamics and many sides. It's multifaceted, and it's forever changing. The dynamics that we're exposed to, whether it's the stock market, the interest rates, just the consumer confidence index. There are so many different things that factor into, and then you've got these other factors like, are the federal government pushing infrastructure into an area? Are the schools getting rezoned? The industry and the game and the gamesmanship within that game change hourly, and we
just need people to play fair. That's all. Not all of them play fair.
No, and look, and then that's up to reporting. And if you see something dodgy, or if you think something's going on, you report it. Do report it. Put your hand up. Yeah. This industry can only get cleaned up if the cleaning is happening. And it's like anything in life, what you walk past, you accept, and you need to, if you feel, and look, a lot of the time, it could be a misread. I've sold a property at an auction, and I did mention this one before we started recording. I've had a property at auction in Castle Hill, hotly contested, one live buyer, one telephone bidder. Mm-hmm. The live buyer kept getting trumped by the telephone bidder every time. And he was taking minutes between his bids, really doing his sums, really calculating where he was at. And this was a high-ticket property, highest auction sale in Castle Hill's history at the time. And he was being very calculated because of the numbers. Every time he placed a bid, telephone bidder, 5 more.
Instant.
5 more. Instant. It started to breed some skepticism. The telephone bidder was an executive living overseas, expat, looking to repatriate in a couple of years' time, wanted to invest now before the market got away from him. He'd done his sums, and so long as there was somebody else pacing him, he was happy to pay 5 more than the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So every time this guy placed a bid, his strategy was, I'm going to go 5 more.
Yeah.
Until he couldn't anymore, it was going to be 5 more.
Yeah.
The live bidder thought it was just convenient that this guy could quickly pay 5 more. And I think the live bidder thought it was a dummy bidder. So at the end, he folded his arms and said, no, go and sell it. And I think he thought I was bluffing. And I think he thought I wasn't going to sell it. I had called the property on the market about $150,000 ago. So why would I sell?
Dummy
Why would I
bidder
drop the hammer?
Yeah.
If it was a dummy bidder, the dummy bidder would have stopped. The dummy bidder wouldn't bid above
Maybe he was
reserve.
playing chicken to see if you would drop it.
And I think he sat
Yeah.
back, and I dropped the hammer. I tried. I had an audience of 300 people. I had cameras everywhere. And I made a joke. I actually said, well, so, I've got an audience here who are aware that I've asked you plenty of times.
Yeah.
I am going to sell it. I can't have you come back on me tomorrow saying I didn't give you a chance. Once, twice, and third. Are you all sure? Done, finished. Put on his arms, sold it. Instantly, he went white as a sheet. He looked like he was going to vomit. He was calling my bluff, right? He was calling my bluff. So what I would say is that just because we're hearing right now that telephone bidders aren't real or there are, it's not always the case. And
No,
you can't
we've bid it
assume it's the case.
We're on holiday. We've bid it over the phone before.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're bidding past the reserve and it's announced on the market, you'd have to be very
You would
brave
have
to
to
dummy
be-
bid it up.
But then again, like you said before, it's a very, very small percentage of of that to happen. And once it does happen, it gets into the media blows it up, and
People are on the lookout.
people on the lookout, and now suddenly everyone is
Which
thinking,
is good. Look, which is good. I want that skepticism.
Well, what I'm saying is now the buyers are aware of this, and they think it happens in almost every second auction.
That's my concern,
Yeah.
is that they think it's commonplace because of the amplification of the very, very minimal times it's actually happened.
Yes.
So I think buyers watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, or even doing research and stumbling across this, you do need to know it's the minority of the minority of the minority, despite the amplification in the media. I get it. It's current, it's topical, and there's things going on in the media and, with fair trading and things like that at the moment that is making it topical.
Yeah.
It does not mean it's the norm. It's so far from the norm, it's not funny, to the point that I, as an auctioneer who represent more sales through the northwest of Sydney than any auctioneer in the country, never happens at mine.
Yeah.
Never. And that's a huge sample size.
Yeah. So, and look, if listeners out there don't want the headache,
True.
reach out. Reach out.
100%. And I would encourage it. It's a service that again, myself and my fellow auctioneers, we love. We know that you're turning up research, you're turning up well armed, you're going to bid within your budget. There will be an emotional quotient at the end if you are that final one or two, and you're not going to miss it. But that advocacy and that I guess that shield analogy that I used, protecting the vendor and working for their best interest is something that it's huge. It's huge in the States. It's slowly becoming more commonplace here in Sydney and certainly around the country. And it's a needed function within the industry.
Amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Stu, where can people reach out to you?
If they want to find me, I'm very easy to find. So whether it's searching Benson Auctions or Stu Benson, be it on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or my website, bensonauctions.com.au, very easy to find, very communicative, and happy to help anybody at any stage of their buying journey.
And look, just jump onto your Instagram. They can actually educate themselves there before they actually go into their own auction.
Yep, correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
And any questions leading into an auction, always.
And if people are looking at a property that's going to auction, ask who the auctioneer is. You're well within your rights as a buyer to go, right, who's your auctioneer? Who's calling this one?
Yep.
Pick up the phone. I always do it.
Yeah.
And as you have done as well, when you've listed and sold your own properties, you've also always said to the agent, we're using Stu.
Yeah.
A vendor can choose.
Yeah, I won't sign an agency agreement unless...
If the vendor wants to use a specific photographer, a specific videographer, if you want to use an auctioneer that you trust or you like or you've followed on social and think is going to do your property justice, you tell the agent, I'll sign with you, but I'm signing with you on the proviso that on auction day, we're locking in Stu Benson. And that does
shots with and Dragan knows this, I'm a bit of a control. I don't like to relinquish control to people that are in cahoots with each other. And we've talked about this on the other podcast we did with you, where I choose the independent auctioneer because then I manage the communication and it's not two against me.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's everyone's independent and I can self-advocate if I'm the one hiring you directly.
Yeah, I had an auction on Saturday in Castle Hill. Straight after the auction, a young couple made a beeline to me afterwards. Never met them before, never seen them before. And said, Stu, we live diagonally across the road. We've seen you online. We've seen you in person. We just want you to know, middle of March next year, you're auctioning our property. I said, that's fantastic. Have you chosen an agent? No, we haven't chosen an agent, but you're auctioning our property.
That's
so
great.
Fantastic. It's good for me and it speaks volumes to my character and my results and my reputation. But that should be every vendor. Every vendor should be able to say, I want you as the professional at the helm on auction day, and we'll sort out the agent afterwards. And if they want the best representation and that's their decision, I'm all for it.
Amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Stu.
Thanks for having me again.
We'll get you back again, I'm sure.
Awesome.
Soon.
Looking forward to it.
Always love our chats.
Yeah, Amanda, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. And everyone out there, thank you. If you want to have a chat with us, just go to propertysessions.com.au/15 or the link below. We'll also add a link below for Stu's contact as well. And until next time, see you soon.